Welcome back to the channel, ladies and gentlemen, for another film from Jeff. This one tells the story of a quack, a health spa owner, a charlatan if you like, and also a very popular Christian evangelist on the radio. And this led to road signs to nowhere. So let's see.
In my travels, I spend a lot of time thinking about signs that I see. I always wonder where these places lead. I always wonder how they were started, who came up with the name, and why. Some are easy to answer, and some are very difficult. Today I will tell you about Zy6. A road in the middle of the desert about 100 miles from Las Vegas. I guess I should begin my story by talking about Curtis Springer. He was born on December 2nd, 1896 in Birmingham, Alabama. He claimed to have been a boxing instructor during World War I. He was a con man who worked as a radio evangelist and self-proclaimed medical doctor. He was very well known as a radio evangelist, and at one point he was carried on 221 radio stations. He sold phony medicines on the radio, and the American Medical Association labeled him as the King of Quacks. He was a grifter who claimed to be the professor of several colleges that didn't exist. He sold everything from sheet music to anything else you could think of to make $1. He was a total con man. He sold patent medicines. Finally, the radio station that carried his evangelical shows decided to investigate him. He was on one of the largest radio stations in America, WGN, and they decided to give him the boot. His first wife decided that she had had enough, and she wanted to settle down in one spot. So she convinced him to open up a health spa. They opened their first spa in Fort Hill, Pennsylvania. It lasted 6 years. He just couldn't generate enough money to keep it open. So he decided that he was going to have to come up with a different way of opening a health spa that didn't require any capital. He tried to open a spa in 3 different towns in Pennsylvania, and finally he tried in Cumberland, Maryland. But he wasn't having any luck at all, so they decided that they were going to go to Davenport, Iowa. It was in Davenport, Iowa, that he saw an ad in a magazine, and it talked about the fact that you could file for a mining claim on federal land, and then you could use the land to do basically whatever you wanted. For a few $100s, he applied for a federal land grant of 12,800 acres in California's Mojave Desert. It was a tract of land 8 miles long and 3 miles wide. It contained the remnants of an old army post and a defunct railroad station. It was out on the edge of the Mojave Desert. It was many miles from anything or anyone, and he basically was free to do whatever he wanted without fear of the police knocking on his door and arresting him once again. Because it didn't cost him very much to acquire the land, it was pretty easy for him to build a few signs, throw up a few buildings, and start a health spa. The name was chosen because It would be the very last thing found in any directory or phone book. And his sales pitch was, it was the final word in health. Much like when I was growing up, my parents owned the All-Star janitorial service, because with the name All-Star, it was first in the Yellow Pages above everyone else. Which is why in the American Yellow Pages, when you would look stuff up, there was so many things named Aardvark and Acme and the like. There was a small lake that was built by the railroads to use for water storage, and he now called it Lake Tuanday. A hotel was built, and he used the homeless from Skid Row in Los Angeles to build the structures and to build the basic town. He promised them free room and board in exchange for their labor. It was a total house of cards. It was a health spa built by someone who claimed to be a doctor that wasn't. It was a place where you could come for spiritual healing that was founded by someone who claimed to be a Presbyterian minister and wasn't. It was only a matter of time before the house of cards fell. And it lasted from the early 1930s all the way until the early 1970s, when the government said, no, we want that land back. The grant was given to you for mineral exploration, not for health spa. And the lake was said to contain a fish called a chub, which had reached the list of endangered species, and they wanted to save them. And they wanted to save the desert tortoise, which lived in the area and was also considered endangered. So he was arrested and put in prison. And after a short time, he was released on the condition that he relinquish all rights to his quote-unquote spa, and that was the end of Zysik's, the health spa. Now all that remain are a few wooden fishing boats stuck helplessly in the middle of the desert. Though it was once a thriving health spa in the middle of the desert, little remains. The buildings are derelict. There is a fountain in the middle of the lake and palm trees that wonder why they are no longer maintained. I love the street signs recording the Boulevard of Dreams in the middle of a ghost town, where there was once promenades and manicured lawns is now derelict. Now when you see that sign in the middle of the desert and you wonder what lies down that lonely road, there may be a story. There may be an interesting story out there, long forgotten in the middle of the desert. The story of a man who died in poverty and was buried in a veteran cemetery because he had that right as a World War I veteran. You never know where a desert road will take you, and you never know the stories that you will find at the end of it. I leave you now in the middle of the Mojave Desert, 100 miles from Las Vegas, in the middle of nowhere, standing in front of a highway sign riddled with bullets, a sign that has a very interesting story behind it. Remember, everybody, be good to one another, think good thoughts, do good deeds, and I will see you on another adventure.